Yeah. Okay, the Jentry Podcast. I know that you will be loving it. We here to break it down so that you start to understand your local government. Who are the leaders? Time to get active, do something about it. Dealing with jobs, the workforce, and affordable housing. Motivate and inspire. Elevate, take it higher. For the next generation. Knowledge is power for your community. Giving you the info that you really need. Time to make a change and a difference. Tune in, don't miss it. It's the Jentry. The Jentry Podcast. The Jentry Podcast. Making a change, switching it up.
Today, we have an incredible guest. I'm your host, Jonathan Mason, and with me, I have State Representative Francesca Hong, who represents the 70th Assembly District. But she's also more than that. She was the first Asian American ever elected to the Wisconsin State Legislature. She's a chef, a community organizer, and she prides herself in always supporting food justice, community equity, education, and workforce and workers' rights. And now, even more so, she has her sights set on the governor's race of 2026. Francesca, I know I said a lot, but before we jump into it, how are you doing today?
I'm maintaining and giving myself grace for maintaining. I think in these times, that's all right.
I can appreciate that, and thank you for being candid. I typically just see everybody just says, I'm doing well, but no, maintaining, that is a strong way to start this off. But I have to do my job, and I have to ask, as I always do, what is the special sauce of Wisconsin? What makes Wisconsin the best place to live in the United States?
I think it's our people. And maybe that's cliche, but Wisconsin has so many communities who have a distinct culture. And I think that we can all coexist better, but we're also building community together. So I hold those things, and I think that really makes Wisconsin special.
I love that, and I love how you broke down the different aspects of the people, and it's not just one homogenous group, and I very much resonate with that. Now, taking a step back, what was your childhood like? Did you always know you wanted to be governor one day?
It never crossed my mind. Becoming a politician was not the plan. I was so lucky to grow up in a neighborhood here in Madison called Eagle Heights. I'm a very proud daughter of Korean immigrants, and my parents came here to study at the University of Wisconsin. So grew up in student housing, and then throughout high school, I just tried to do as many different things that I could. I was a theater kid, but also a varsity soccer player, and wanted to learn French and Spanish. And the plan was to go to college and actually apply for J school and become a sports journalist. But I took some time off, and I was working part time at a restaurant, and I fell in love with it. I ended up dropping out of college and then worked my way through some really great restaurants here in Madison, just trying to out hustle everyone and learn from these incredible chefs who were generous enough to take me in. And then became an executive chef at a restaurant called 40. And in 2016, I had my son and opened my own restaurant, Morris Ramen. Do not recommend having a kid and opening a restaurant at the same time. And started community organizing. 2016 was a tumultuous time for our country, and a lot of folks in our community were scared and really didn't know what the future held. I did what I knew, which was bring people together, around a table, bring people together around the table, share stories, vulnerabilities, and I brought together an amazing group of women. We ended up forming the Culinary Ladies Collective and used our talents to raise money for organizations that we cared about. A bake sale to raise tens of thousands of dollars for Planned Parenthood, supporting organizations like Domestic Abuse Intervention Services and the Rape Crisis Center. And then in 2020, there was another moment of deep chaos and crisis for our communities. And I was pissed. I was pissed at the legislature for undermining public health and not thinking about small businesses and the communities that we serve. Was mouthing off on Twitter to Lovin Voss, who's still our power hoarding Speaker of the Assembly. And I was asked to run for office. There was this seat that I hold now. My predecessor was appointed to a judgeship, and I think folks were ready for a different type of leadership. A mom, a community organizer, and someone who creates spaces of where people can be themselves, enjoy a meal, feel nourished, and feel like they're in community. And those are all the things that I take with me into how I lead, how I legislate, and I try to show folks how leadership really is about relationship building and using your platform, sharing your platform as a force of good, and making sure the folks who really are bringing different lived experiences and advocacy and activism into government is who we need to center when we legislate. And I think it's a responsibility of every politician actually to be a community organizer and support them. That's what I bring to my job. And now that I'm a candidate for governor, I'm going to continue to bring my many identities, lived experiences, and what I've learned so much from communities who have been generous enough to step up, hold their electeds accountable. And I think that's what we need to continue to do, especially in these times right now. Another time of chaos and tumult. I might just be following the chaos. That maybe restaurants can be places of chaos, but also really places where you work as a team and build community. And I think government can be that too.
I think some of the things that you said resonate with me. One, from just a very personal note, while you were stating it, he's like, I opened a restaurant and I had a child. I was like, wow, I've started a business and had a child in the same year. And yes, I do not recommend it. But then also just, I've said it on quite a bit. I love when people are called to run for office. This wasn't your lifelong dream, which is totally fine, but it came from you being a pillar in your community, creating spaces for all, but then especially women in the culinary fields to provide support in the causes that they believe in. And even to your words, not mine, mouthing off on Twitter, to just
I'm still doing that.
still doing that, just to show how passionate and much you cared, and then you were asked to run, and I think that resonates with you as a person. When you feel that is chaos, you want to breathe that bridge and that calm in what could be a storm, whether it's restaurants or politics. So I definitely resonated with that. And then you spoke about bringing your different identities to the legislature. Can you speak to what it meant? Well, first, as an outsider, it's so surprising that you were, not because of you, just in general, the first Asian American to ever be elected to the legislature in Wisconsin. What did the layers of your identity? How did that not weigh on you, but how did that give you a new viewpoint or lens in how you led in the legislature?
We didn't know that I would be the first Asian American. And to be very honest, I was hesitant to run on that for the campaign. And I think part of it is fear where you don't want to be defined by just one thing.
Hmm.
And even though we were running on, me being a mom and an organizer and a small business owner, there's something different when it comes to your ethnicity, your background, where I wasn't sure if that was something that was going to help me or hurt me. And I was so wrong. um, when I was elected, and it was specifically the Hmong community, we have the third largest population of Hmong people in the country. And They play such an important role in our state and just contribute so much. And they welcomed me, wanted to make sure that I met their communities, were part of their celebrations. And I realized then that representation it's actually a movement because it has to be more than bringing someone who is a first and just being identified by our heritage or race, which I am incredibly proud of. But I also bring, myself as a small business owner who understands the value and the need to prioritize worker safety, wages, and working conditions that, we got to take on that corporate power together. I bring my care, compassion, and also fatigue and stress that comes with motherhood, and I'm very honest about it. And so, being the first Asian American in the legislature, I have a responsibility to bring more folks into the movement where we're not just talking about representation. And so excited that this session we actually have an Asian caucus. Because when you have more than one person in the caucus who's Asian, you can start an Asian caucus. So, Representative Renuka Mayadev, who's here in Madison, and then Representative Angelito Tenorio, who represents West Alice, bringing being together and understanding that our leadership requires ensuring that folks feel like government is accessible and that we need more of us in government to not only uplift our community, but making sure that we use our platform to celebrate and bring in their leadership to the legislature.
Wow, I think that is so important, and you teased out some details that I truly want our viewers to understand. It's the intersectionality. You bring a multitude of lenses and viewpoints to the legislature, so it's not just one, but they're all so important. Like you need more mothers in the legislature. You need more business owners. They need to be small business owners, especially need to be represented, and then the different ethnicities. And I smiled when you spoke about the Hmong culture because I once you said it, I was like, wow, I have heard this. I was speaking to city manager Casey Bradley in Sheboygan, and he was speaking about that community. So I love to hear that you agree that representation matters. And a lot of our viewers are younger and they're thinking of potentially maybe getting into a career of public service. So I always like to ask for them, what is a state representative?
So, the state representative, there are 99 of us in the assembly and then 33 senators. And I always like to say it's the state assembly that's the better house because we represent the people. We're most accessible to them and we're lawmakers. So, drafting legislation, that's an important part of the job. But I think the more important part is our constituent services. So, as a state representative, it's our responsibility to help our constituent get resources from different state agencies, right? It's places like the Department of Health Services, Department of Transportation, who are responsible for implementing a lot of the laws and programs. And so then we may help folks get connected to other organizations. We help folks with, if there are issues that are legislative issues in their community, we make sure they're getting connected to the right people, or if we can address the issue ourselves. We work with local government, so city councils, mayors, county executives, to make sure that there's, a partnership between the state and local government and what sort of legislation they need to see. It's the people that tell us that first. And some of the best legislation that I've introduced, and in even with some legislation, even though we're in the minority party, their bills, the best type of bills are the ones that have the most stakeholder input and not just the lobbyists that are pushing for it, right? People who bring their lived experiences because it's those folks who are closest to the problem who should have the most power and are often the best suited to bring us the solution. So, a legislator, beyond drafting legislation and making sure to build those with community input, constituent services. And then I talked about community organizing before, like that in building work of legislating and working with other lawmakers. But it's that out of building work, right? Outside the Capitol, where we're building relationships with folks who are doing really important work on the ground or making sure that government is more accessible to folks, whether it comes to services or making sure the folks who are the experts are at our press conferences and helping us to educate folks around what sort of laws that we should be passing. We're not passing a lot of great laws from the state legislature now, but that's that's part of the role of being a state rep and a public servant is to be accessible, accountable, and support communities and the people that we represent.
Wow, that was a great breakdown, and it's nice to see like you've been on the organizing side, and now you still are saying it's like good to work with people that are pounding the pavement and doing the work because you've
Mhm.
actually lived that experience, which is not always the case. I'll share with my viewers, but also you spoke a lot on the lawmaking side about collaboration and how important it is to work with people who are bringing their lived experience and they're closer to some of these issues. That brings me to collaboration of another sort. Could you maybe give us an example of a time that you've had to get collaboration with somebody that may have different politics with
Mm.
you, or working across the aisle to get something that you found was very important to your district or very important to Wisconsin?
So, collaboration for good should be the collaboration that we prioritize, especially in my work, collaboration for social good. And I was fortunate enough to work with Republicans to pass a bill that would ensure that our K 12 public schools include Asian American history and stories. And it was honestly, it was shocking that this bill that had been introduced for multiple years, even before I was in the legislature, really got nothing beyond an introduction, community folks talking about why the bill is important, and then it just kind of dies. And so for this last session back in 23, 24, to be able to work with Republicans who did like this was a bipartisan bill because Republicans know how important the Hmong community is, not just as a voting bloc, but whether it's in, helping with economic development. We've got educators. We have so much of their leadership to acknowledge and learn from that I think there was this moment of shared humanity where they both knew that it was a good political strategy, but also the right thing to do. And so that collaboration and the relationship building, and then really bringing in so many different people across the state to advocate for this bill, because it couldn't just be Madison, Milwaukee, maybe Eau Claire, some of the folks that are some of the places that are a little bluer. We had people come from, you know, very conservative areas, and it wasn't just Asian American folks, it was small business owners, people of all different backgrounds. And I think that that only helped push the bill forward. And it probably is my proudest achievement that we were able to get that bill across the finish line and have Governor Evers sign it. And now it's Act 266.
Wow, that is impressive. And it's so cool that was the one that you thought of when we were just talking about your layered identity, but the identity that is so important. And it sounds like, and I know, having spoken to other people, that identity is so important to Wisconsin, generally speaking. So it's very nice that you were able to work across the aisle, as they say, and I think you put a nice bow on that as collaboration for good, and I think that is so important. And nationally, I think we should all be working to collaborate, especially for good. And that dovetails nicely. So you're running for governor in 2026. This is first and foremost, congratulations. is
Thank you.
a
Thank
huge feat. What were some of
think it's recognizing that this political moment demands a movement first and to engage and bring people together to understand that working class people power is what is going to help us get through these times. And so, as a community organizer, as someone who myself, I don't always feel like I belong in politics and government. And there are a lot of people who don't feel like they belong and have been actually left behind, not just in Wisconsin, but across the country. And so, as more of the wild card candidate, as somebody who does bring a lot of folks with different identities together, I mean, I think that's surprising to people because I've been very outspoken about social justice and protecting communities who are more vulnerable. So it really was about acknowledging and thinking and pushing myself to ask, what does this moment need? And it's to bring more people together to fight the fascism that is raining down on us right now, to dismantle, 14 years of Republican rule in this state that has really harmed communities and work, work with folks who have different identities, lived experiences and backgrounds to fight back against a billionaire corporate class that has really made it harder for the rest of us to get by and take care of ourselves.
Wow, I love what you said about a movement of bringing people together. That is, whether it's Wisconsin, whether it's my home state of Maryland, anywhere. That is powerful, and I want to double click on some things. You kind of teased out your. Now I
Mhm,
want to get more into the X's and O's, and I know this is everything can't be sunshines and rainbows anywhere in any state. So, do you see as specifically some of the issues in Wisconsin generally that you would like to change? We can take it a step further than that after this question and kind of get into some of your thoughts around solutions. But even just what are some of the challenges in Wisconsin?
Life is stressful and way too damn expensive for too many people in this state. And I'm talking like all income levels too. And so it's a challenge of finding childcare, of having a job that pays a living wage. It's public education that we know is what makes communities stronger, regardless of what your connection to education is. It's about the fact that not everyone has paid leave and has to choose between a paycheck and paying rent or taking care of yourself for someone you loved or a new family member. We have a healthcare crisis in this country and our state. It's too expensive, it's not high quality, and as someone who went without insurance because it was too expensive and just prayed that I didn't have to go to the hospital because of an accident, no one should have to make choices of like what's shitty for me and what's shittier. And so I'm hearing a lot of folks talk about, a general fear around where we are as a country, but also these individual issues that hit their family and that they're thinking about every day. And I know that when everyday folks have their basic needs met, it helps all folks regardless of like what level of privilege or comfort they may be experiencing. When we all do better, we all do better.
Think that is so important and across the nation. Like spoken to over 60 plus leaders, affordability comes up everywhere. It's not, I guess, scary is the word that issue is so prevalent. But I think to remedy that are leaders like yourself that are going into office knowing that we have to come up with solutions to um, assuage that in any way possible. So I definitely commend you for understanding what the issues are. And I know, this is the $1 million question. I know it's early in your campaign. Have you started to formulate some potential ways to change that at all?
Absolutely. I mean, the solutions are to go big. to go bold, to go universal, because we talked about how we're hearing about childcare, healthcare, housing, long-term care, education from so many communities across the state, which means we have to address these universal issues with universal policies. And we've been told that that's too expensive, that's too much, and that's bullshit. I think because we haven't had these policies enacted before, that's part of the reason we're here now. And when we have a strong social safety net, when we have expand badger care beyond into a single payer policy, a single payer option, when we have fully funded public schools, when there's universal childcare and universal paid leave for all, we have a commitment to building affordable housing and making it easier to build. That's the expectations and the bar we should be setting. And we can make better possible when we have more folks fighting for this, because expanding Medicaid didn't just become something that folks are talking about because it's what we thought we could do. Happened because of organizing and a movement and talking to folks about it and telling more people that this is something that the state can do. And so, having a fair tax system, making sure that we're building revenue, things like legalizing weed, which is going to bring in almost $200 million a year from taxing them. I think that the solutions really do exist in broad universal policies to ensure everyone has their basic needs met, and doing the work for the nitty-gritty policies too. I've seen through multiple budget cycles so many different experts and agencies working to make sure that they have the funding that they need to implement such important programs, whether it's for our farmers or educators, people in public health. But I do think we have to set the policy at a universal level. And my team is working with what we call the policy posse, experts in how we can implement and enact these policies. And so to me, the solutions are really in serving some of our most vulnerable, but everyday working class people who will have more opportunity for economic security, because this is such an urgent issue. Like, we have to meet the urgency of this moment, not through complacency, but through bold, expansive vision where we know that it doesn't have to be that way and that we all deserve better.
Wow, I love it. You've identified the major issues and then you taking it a step further, preparing general solutions. But then you taking it even a step further, and it sounds like you have the support and help from the policy posse to figure out what does implementation look like? What are the best practices, not just nationally, but then I'm assuming globally, to see how this can be done in an effective and a sustainable way. I think the word you used was bold. I definitely want to second that. Issues need bold solutions. I'm very excited to see what you guys come up with, and then how that connects with the people. And this is actually going to be a first on Gentry. By request of you, you wanted us to reach out to the community and field some questions. I think that speaks to who you are as a leader, and we were very excited to do so. So, if you don't mind, I have, I believe, 4 questions from community members
Awesome.
in Wisconsin. So the first one is from Brian. If I I apologize in advance if I mess up saying the city, so please correct me. But Brady from Delavan wants to know, what are good motivations for them to work in local and state government?
Remember that the government that is closest to you are going to pass policies that impact you the most and probably quickest, which is why it's so important that we have young people, folks who are working class, running for local government, whether it's at the town level, city level, county level, or even the state level. I think that young voices, lived experience, they're also going to bring the urgency in. Like, young people in the last, what, 18 years most of their life, whether you're Gen Z or millennial. We have seen some shit. And I think that it's important that their voices are centered, that we bring their voices to the table and provide resources, mentorship for folks to be able to build campaigns to run for local office.
It's Thank you. It's so important. I think we can get caught up in the federal government, and there's very much importance to the federal government. But what you said is so true. The local and the state government that is closest to you is often going to have a larger effect. We'd love to see young people continue to become public servants. Nick from Tomahawk wants to know, what are your thoughts on law enforcement and security?
So we have to make investments in public goods. I'm talking about libraries, community centers, public parks, public education, youth programming, and creating spaces where young people can go build community, have fun. These investments in public goods are going to be ways that we can prevent state sanctioned police violence. And I think that um, ensuring that we are not putting more on law enforcement. A lot of folks are having to be mental health workers, social workers who are police officers. But there's ways that we can shift that funding from large police budgets by especially investing in young people and investing in that public good so that folks have more opportunities to find community spaces. And these are the things that are going to lower crime rates, which we're already seeing in Wisconsin. And I think that it's an it's one of the most shameful things about this state that we incarcerate Black men at faster rates and more Black men than any other state in the country. The wealth disparities and the education disparities with opportunity gaps for our Black and Brown students, I think that has been it's been a betrayal of politicians and government. So I think when it comes to policing and criminal legal reform, making sure that we have those public investments, but that we're doing everything at the state level to lower prison populations, invest in rehabilitation programs, making sure that folks have access to just humane practices in these prisons to make sure that there's possibility and opportunity when folks are coming back to their community.
Wow, I did not know some of the challenges in Wisconsin, but it sounds like you've thought through some of the lead indicators of potentiality of crime and how you can invest on the front end to not have the back end issue at all. So I think that's very thought provoking, and then a very forward thinking way to think about such a big issue nationally. But it sounds like even in the state of Wisconsin, such a big issue. Switching gears a bit, Alicia from Red Granite wants to know, how would a career in government contribute to a stable life?
So on a very technical level, when you work for the state in Wisconsin, whether it's for a state agency or in the legislature or the executive office, being a public servant means that you have access to state insurance and retirement. And um, I I didn't know how 401ks worked. Those aren't things that I had in the service industry. And so that stable care, honestly, is one of the things that is very beneficial to work in the public sector for in government. And I think also that being a public servant and one that, I mean, I'm not saying all of us, and that I think that most politicians, and I fall into this trap too, where you let ego and money get in the way of the many. Ultimately, when we have more people who are community focused and understand the need for sacrifice and using your platform to uplift other people, being in government can be incredibly gratifying because you are playing a direct role in building community and helping to make government for good. And that's why we need folks who are bringing that organizing, community building, lessening suffering. Like, that's the role of an elected official, should ultimately be about lessening suffering. And so these are all things that I think are part of the benefits, but also the learning experiences that people can have working in government or being an elected official and public servant.
Wow, thank you. I definitely can appreciate that in the sense we want to, even not just politicians or people in government, we want to lessen suffering across the board, but especially when you are elected or you are in a position of power, I think it's even more so important. And then our final question is more of a tactical X's and O's question. Alyssa from Green Bay wants to know, what is the difference between local and state government?
So, state government is about making laws. And there's the three branches: executive, judicial, and legislative. And so, I shouldn't say just laws, but enforcement of laws, drafting of laws, and protecting laws, whether for the Department of Justice. And then at the local level, you've got things like your stoplights, your funding of public libraries, parking enforcement. Actually, that's where those budgets are going to include funding for police, for community programs, buses. And so those decisions are made at the local level. But in Wisconsin, the state legislature really controls, the state controls the purse strings. And so your state income taxes, those are distributed back to local communities and used to implement laws that are passed in the legislative level at the state level.
Wow. No, thank you for that breakdown. And I like how he said it. The state controls the purse strings. And that is very important to anything that's being done. So, Francesca, you are off the hot seat. I do have one final question coming from me. In 25 years, what are the people of Wisconsin going to be saying about their state? What is that legacy that's going to be left for people in the future?
I think that their quality life is better than in other states because we have strong communities with strong public schools and public investments in our parks, in our libraries. I'm always going to talk about libraries, that we have preserved our beautiful lakes and state parks for everyone to be able to enjoy, uh, how all the natural landscapes in our state. And I hope that people see that I hope that the people in Wisconsin in 25 years want to stay and raise their families and be a Wisconsinite for multiple generations. And that will be because we have safety, and people feel safe living here, and they want to grow community here. I want to see a state like that in 25 years. I think we can absolutely do it.
I love that. A safe place that people are proud of their community. They're able to have a great quality of life and they're able to raise a family. I think I'm not from Wisconsin, but I would definitely appreciate a state like that. Well, Francesca, thank you so much for being here. I just want to personally thank you. I know you're very busy and you have a million things pulling at you with your current duties to now running for governor. I know how much that can stress you, but thank you for taking the time to speak with not just me, but also our viewers, and then also taking it a step further to reaching out to people from your community. So I just wanted to say thank you.
Jonathan, thank you so much. This was a very soul fulfilling conversation. Even though I mostly talked about myself, I really appreciate the work that you're doing, what you're sharing with your podcast. And I'm happy to come back anytime.
Nice. Well, we'll hold you to that. We would love to have you back and even learn even more. For everyone here at Gentry, again, I want to say thank you, and to the viewers, thank you so much for being here. I'm your host, Jonathan Mason. And with me here is State Representative Francesca Hong, who is running for governor. So be on the lookout and make sure you hit the polls in 2026. Thank you so much. Have a great day.